Should we start, students? What I am starting with is chapter number 18, part 2, that is Minimum Wages Act. What I am starting, students? What we are starting, chapter number 18, part 2, that is Minimum Wages Act 1948. What we are starting? Minimum Wages Act 1948. Okay? Minimum Wages Act 1948. Can you tell me the context of this law? What do you mean? What would be the Minimum Wages Act? What would be the content of Minimum Wages Act? And would it be only for daily wagers or it will be for monthly wagers as well? You told me that it would be only for daily wagers, right? But it would be for monthly wagers as well, right? Anything else? What would be the content of this law? Settled, students. Settled. What we are starting, students, is Minimum Wages Act 1948, right? It's been passed in 1948, so again it is what? A pre-constitutional law, right? Right, students? And it might be passed by the Dominion government or it might be passed by the British government but adopted by the Parliament of India, right? India being a highly populated country having so much workforce, right? And the work available is quite very limited. There is a huge gap of demand and supply, and that is why whatever work that is being provided with is people are willing to work on those work conditions, right? So there would be a situation where the mass that is called the workers would be exploited by the capitalists, right? So it is required to have a law that will determine the minimum wage rate that need to be paid by the employer irrespective of his financial conditions, right? Can I say that payment of minimum wage would be mandatory for every establishment and every employer even if he is suffering the losses, right? Even I'm sorry, even if an employer is regularly suffering losses from last many years, there would be no excuse on payment of minimum wage. You have to pay the minimum wage as you have hired the services of the employees, right? Right, students? And now do you know that by 2025, government is planning to shift from minimum wage to living wage? Means they are just willing to, I have add the news report of the same article where the government has a very clear vision that now they are not going to sacrifice or they are not going to settle down, let the workers settle down with the minimum wage. They are trying to get it upgraded to living wage. Means now the minimum wage is going to be the living wage by 2025. Can you have any guesses what would be the difference between minimum wage and living wage? Can you have any guesses? Can you guess?
Be higher.
Definitely it would be higher. Right? I'm not asking whether it would be lower or higher. Definitely, without any doubt, right? It would be higher.
Based on inflation, like minimum wage is like previous.
Don't you think that when it comes to minimum wage, even it would carry inflation? As of now, I think India is having daily minimum wage of around 170 rupees. That is, I think, 176. It varies from state to state, locality to locality, right? The level of what is the minimum wage rate that has been applicable in India? Tell me the amount.
176.
In which state? I have taken the name of the state as well. So, be in the class, don't talk to anyone. So, the thing is, don't you think that the minimum wage even would carry the inflation impact, right? Minimum wage would definitely cover the cost of living index or would take care of, inflationary norms, right? India is, although being a stabilized economy, still we are facing inflation. So it would be a subject matter of revision, no doubt on it, right? tell me what would be the difference between minimum wage or living wage. Any guesses? I am telling you now. See, when it comes to minimum wage, no beta, minimum wage includes roti kapda makan, that is called food, shelter, and apna clothes. Okay, but when it comes to living wage, don't you think that to have a good healthcare facility should also be an entitlement of an employee, right? Don't you think that education is also the basic right, right? So two additional things should be covered in the minimum wage. That should be other than food, shelter, and clothes. What should be covered? The healthcare facility, right? And the next thing is what, beta? The education for the children, right? Of the child of or children of the laborers, right? So now the living wage is what? Food, shelter, clothes plus healthcare facility plus education facility. Got my point, students? So living wage would definitely be higher than the minimum wage. Now the labor code is going to be implemented by 2025. As of now, the minimum wage rate varies from state to state, but with new labor code, government is going to come out with the uniform minimum wage rate throughout the nation. But that would be quite very challenging because every state is having their own financial conditions. So and financial status, like Bihar, UP, where the very less entrepreneurs are there and their financial conditions are not good. Most of the people are migrant labor from that state, so that would be a challenge, and their financial position would be a big challenge. But government has a plan to come out with a minimum base rate of minimum wage, that this much amount should be the minimum wage rate for every state. You can higher it up, but you cannot lower it down. Got my point, students? So with new labor code, they might come with, they would definitely come up with uniform wage rate once the labor code will be implemented, and by 2025 they'll upgrade it to the financial position, upgrade it to the living wage, and that will create a challenge of weak financial position of the employer, right? Because now the employer need not to pay just the minimum wage, they have to take care of the healthcare facilities as well as education facility of the children of the laborer working under their organization. Got my point, students?
Money or insurance?
It can be in any form. If Reliance is having its own hospital, Tata is having its own hospital, Adani is having its own hospital, so they can render those services in their own hospital and own schools, right? Or they can pay for the same, right? It's totally up to whom? The employer and the employee, the contract between them. Is it clear? So whenever I am talking about Minimum Wages Act 1948, it is a pre-constitutional law. The law has been passed in order to protect the interests of the labor class people. It helps to prevent the exploitation of laborer where the workforce is higher and the work available is lower. The country like India, right? As of now, if someone would ask you that what would be the minimum wage rate, it starts from 176 rupees, and it varies from state to state. There is no uniformity in minimum wage rate applicable over here in India. But once the labor code will be implemented, there would be a one single uniform minimum wage rate that is going to be implemented by new labor code. But as of now, it is not being implemented, right? And the last thing is, now the government is planning to upgrade the concept of minimum wage to living wage, whereas minimum wage includes only food, clothes, and shelter. The minimum wage would cover, the living wage would cover education and healthcare services as well, right? Right, students? Is it clear? So this act is applicable all over India. And what is scheduled employment? Can you help me out with that? What is scheduled employment, beta? What would be scheduled employment? And which kind of law it is? It is a welfare based law, right? Although it is carrying wages related norm, but which kind of law it is, beta? Welfare laws, right? Right, students? And scheduled employment is, every act is having its own schedule. Okay, so whatever employment that has been enlisted in that schedule will be classified as a Got my point, students? Is it clear? Manageable. Now, what is appropriate government? What is appropriate government? Getting everything, students, online students. What is appropriate government? I told you very clearly, when it comes to labor laws, right? Who is making the labor laws over here in India, beta? The central government, not the central government, the parliament, right? Parliament is coming out with the labor laws. But who is implementing those labor laws? State government. So state agencies are implementing it. So can I say that appropriate government is nothing more than the rule making government? Rule making government. What is appropriate government, beta? Rule making. Can I say that an act itself is an incomplete document? It need to be complemented with rules and regulations. Can I say that, students? If you want to become perfect in any subject, say company law, what do you have to study? Companies at 2013, read with rules, read with regulations, right? Read with schedules, right? And every other document which is the complementary part of what? Company law, right? In the same way, if you want to become expert in laws, can I say that even after so much time spent on payment of wages, you guys are not perfect when it comes to payment of wages act? Can I say that? Why you are not having complete knowledge? Because you are not well aware about the rules of Karnataka government, right? Have you gone through with the rules related with payment of wages act passed by Karnataka government? Do they will have any kind of rule in this matter? Answer would be yes, because implementing agency would be the local government, right? The state government, right? In the same way, when it comes to payment of wages act, if you minimum wages act, if you want to become expert in minimum wages act, what you have to do, along with reading the minimum wages act 1948, you have to refer the state rules, right? What you have to rule is you have to figure out with this the state rules, right? Now, for everything, state government is not the rule making authority. In certain industries, see, in certain industries, like for railways is owned by whom? Central government, right? Mines is controlled by the mining authority owned by the central government, right? Oil fields are being regulated by central government, and major corporations established by central government. Can you tell me the names of certain corporation that has been made by central government? BPCL, yes, and IRCTC, right? And LIC, right? LIC is even now governmental corporation. Or Air India, right? Air India is a company, it's not a corporation, it's an ordinary company, right? Got my point, students? So these are the governmental corporation where the government is owning the corporation, right? Or a company, right? BPCL, ONGC, right? ONGC. These all are what? Governmental owned corporations, right? So in governmental owned corporation, rule making power is there with whom? Central government, right? So in 4 cases, the rule making power is there with the central government. So can I say that for mine, for oil field, for railways, and for governmental corporation, central government corporation, throughout the nation, minimum wage rate would be same? Can I say that? Because rule is going to be made by whom? Central government. But for other industries, minimum wage rate will differ from state to state, because rule making power is there with the state government. Got my point, students? So whenever, even in further labor laws, if you'll go through with the concept of appropriate government, what would be the point that should come in your mind? That appropriate government is the rule making government. What is appropriate government, beta? Rule making government. It may be a central government or it may be a state government. Under minimum wages act, for 4 industries it is central government. For other industries it is state government. So for 4 industries, minimum wage rate would be uniform throughout the nation. But for other industries, minimum wage rate would be differ from state to state. Got my point, students? Is it clear? What I am teaching you is minimum wages act. Is it clear? The first definition is being done, that is what? Central government. Appropriate government. Right? Right, students? So after reading this law, what you guys will get to know that, will you be able to tell me the minimum wage rate that has been applicable in Maharashtra after reading this law? Will you be able? Why? Because you have to go to the website of Maharashtra government to check what would be the minimum wage rate that would be applicable in Maharashtra for different category of employment for the different zone, right? Right, students? How they are determining the minimum wage rate, beta? They are determining based on the occupation, right? For every industry, there cannot be the same rate, right? And for every locality, like Maharashtra include tier 1 cities and tier 2 cities, right? For Mumbai, definitely the rate of minimum wage would be higher than rate that has been applicable in Vidarbha, say Nagpur, right? Right, students? So, even after going through with the minimum wage rate or minimum wage law, you guys would be competent enough to understand that what is scheduled employment. Even you would not be capable enough to learn all the scheduled employment, but you will have an idea. And you will have an idea. See, over here for the protection of labor, government has come out with the minimum wage law where you have to pay the minimum wage. If you are not paying the minimum wage, you would be subject matter of penalty only, not imprisonment, right? Penalty only, not the imprisonment. Penalty only, not the imprisonment. Tell me, what would be your thought if the employer is not paying minimum wage? What should be the consequence? It should be just the penalty or it should be the imprisonment? Tell me. It should be what? It should be what, students? It should be penalty or imprisonment. If you would be the law making authority, what would you do? Penalty is common. I'm just asking whether it would be penalty or imprisonment. Tell me one thing. What you should think? What is your opinion? It should be your responsibility to take care of the people who is working with you, or you should have a right to exploit them. You have to take care, right? If you're not taking care, means what you are doing? You're exploiting them, right? If you're exploiting them, you're exploiting who? The public, right? Wrong against public should be what? A crime or a civil offense or civil wrong. So it should be punished how? It should be punished with a penalty or punished with the imprisonment. Definitely imprisonment should be the con. The offenses should not be settled over here, right? Under Payment of Wages Act, only monetary penalty was there, right? Because what you were doing, you are imposing fines, right? What you are doing, you are making unnecessary deductions, right? Or what you are doing, you are not making the payment on time. So how it would affect them? It would affect not substantially to all the employees, right? But if you are not paying minimum wage, means what you are doing? You are exploiting people, right? You are doing a criminal act, right? Where you are allowing people to work for you on starvation wages, right? So it should be imprisoned, right? And as imprisonment would be the element, permanent element of offenses under this act or punishment under this act, can I say that if you do or commit something wrong under Minimum Wages Act, it cannot be compoundable? Can I say that? Can I say that offenses under Minimum Wages Act cannot be compoundable, whereas offenses under Payment of Wages Act would be compoundable? Tell me the reason. Tell me the reason. The first reason is there only monetary penalty is applicable. Here imprisonment is applicable, and imprisonment cannot be compounded, right? And there may be a wrong against an individual. Here the wrong is against the public. It is a public wrong. Got my point, students? Is it clear? So can you see compounding or settlement under Minimum Wages Act? See, it's my mistake. I couldn't manage to pay them. I was in loss. Leave it. No, next time I'll pay. Will the authority will accept your excuse? They'll say, beta, go and sit in the jail, right? Because you have to, right? You have to bear the consequences, right? Right, students? Even Delhi government in 2024 has come out with a clear picture that earlier, if you're not paying the minimum wage, the imprisonment term was 3 months. They have extended it to 6 months, but now it is 3 years. If you're not paying minimum wage over there in Delhi, then you may have to bear the imprisonment period of 3 years. Got my point, students? So all offenses over here is bailable offenses only. They are not offenses classified under IPC, Indian Penal Code, right? Right? And bail is the subject matter of so many other factors, right? But logically, see, the consequences they are making is very complicated, right? The consequences, they are what they are doing in order to make sure that everybody would get what? The minimum wage. They are making the consequences quite very stringent so that people with fear would not violate the provision of what? Minimum wages act. Got my point, students? Is it clear? Go through once, then I'll take the overall what you have understood about minimum wage act, then we'll proceed further. Okay? Getting everything online, students? Please interact. I'm waiting for your messages. Done? Tell me your opinion about minimum wages act. Blue shirt. What's your name? Kapil. Tell me. What is minimum wages act? Do you think that is there any requirement in India where the India is a developing economy? Everybody is well aware about their own rights. Do you think that these kind of welfare laws should be made by the government, because that will ultimately lead to economic exploitation of the owners or entrepreneurs, like startups couldn't work because of this minimum wage law, right? Because they are not having nowadays, I think business units are being established with the thought process of having losses for first few years, right? Almost, if you have gone through with Shark Tank episodes, you might have heard that now all the startups are running behind losses for first few years. Later on they will make bulk profit through valuations, right? Or creating their own innovation or niche, right? So do you think that these kind of laws are essentially required? Tell me yes or no. What is your opinion?
Yes, sir.
More than a welfare, it is a protection law, right? Where they are giving a economic protection to the worker, that they'll get the adequate wages for working for any employer. It doesn't matter whether the organization is bearing loss or earning profits, right? Even if a financial condition of one of the organization has gone worst. Now they have made an application to the court that they are unable to make the payment of minimum wages to the employees and they are seeking relief. Will they be provided with any relief, students? Yes or no? Will they be provided with any relief? Payment of minimum wages is applicable for scheduled employment, and scheduled employment are those category of employment where unskilled labor or semi-skilled laborers are working, who are not well aware about their own rights, right? So protection, whenever there would be a clash of public interest or private interest, do you think what would prevail, public interest or private? So definitely public interest. So court will support whom? The labor class, not the employer. It doesn't matter for how many years you are making losses, you have to make the payment of what, beta? Minimum wage, right? Right, student? What kind of development that has been taken place when it comes to minimum wage law over here in India since 2020? From 2020 to 2024, do you think that the law related with minimum wage has been upgraded, or some relevant changes that has been taken place in minimum wage law from 2020 to 24? Do you have any idea about the same? I have explained, I have not written over that, don't read. I have explained, no? What kind of two significant changes has been brought in this law? Tell me the changes. You. Blue shirt. Normal wage. What is normal wage? Okay. What term it was? Normal wage. Yeah. Okay. That is known as normal wage. It's living wage, right? What is living wage? Now the government is planning to shift to living wage from minimum wage. Minimum wage includes only food, shelter and clothes, right? But the living wage would include what? It is a wider concept and it is going to be implemented according to ILO instructions. ILO, what is ILO, students? So what would be the work of ILO? Internationally, India is a part of International Labour Organization, which is working towards harmonization of labor law over the globe. That every country should have the similar labor laws. Okay, so India, being the founding member of ILO, is working towards standardization of their labor laws as per international standards. Got my point, students? Is it clear? And one more turn has been made by the government in minimum wage. That is what? Wage code, right? Under wage code, the government has come out with uniform wage rate for the entire nation, right? Earlier, under existing minimum wage law, there is multiple minimum wage rate, varies from state to state. But under new minimum wage code, right? Wage code, the minimum wage rate would be uniform throughout the nation, right? Right, students? Is it clear? Now my the next question is, if you want to be expert in minimum wage matter, what all document you should refer for? The Act, the Minimum Wage Act. Read with the relevant schedules, right? And rule books of. For every state, the rule will differ. Yes. For every industry, the rule will differ. For every industry, the rule will differ. For every industry, the rule will differ from state to state. For railways, rule differs from state to state. For railways, for oil field, for mines, for corporation owned by central government. For 4 of them, what you have to refer is Minimum Wage Act 1948. Read with schedule, read with rules made by central government. But for other industries, you should refer the rules made by the state government, right? Right? If I am owning a factory, in Maharashtra, how much minimum wage I have to pay? Where I have to check the minimum wage for my laborers? The Maharashtra rules, right? Because the factory is being owned by me, being an individual, right? Right? Reserve Bank of India is having its registered office in Mumbai, right? Reserve Bank of India is having its registered office in Mumbai. SEBI is having its registered office in Mumbai. How much minimum wage they have to pay? Where you will check their minimum wage rate? The central ruling, right? These are the authorities or corporations owned by central government. Got my point, students? Is it clear? Now proceeding further, I am covering one more definition, then we'll finish up the lecture. Okay, so the next thing is the definition of employee. What they are defining, beta? Employee. What they are defining? Employee. Now what would be the relevance of appropriate government? Appropriate government's relevance is like, whose rule should be you approach for if you want to go or refer for minimum wage rate. If you are willing to determine the minimum wage rate, you need to have knowledge of what beta? Appropriate government, right? For 4 things you will refer central ruling, for other things you will refer state ruling, right? Now what would be the relevance of employee, beta? The person who would come under the definition of employee would be eligible for minimum wage, right? If any person who is coming under the definition of employee would be eligible for what beta? Minimum. A person who is not coming under the definition of employee would not be eligible for minimum wage. Can I say that, beta? If a person is satisfying the definition of employee, he would be eligible for what? Minimum wage. But if he is not satisfying the definition of employee, he would not be eligible for. So see, here it is written, when it comes to employee means any person who has been hired for reward, right? Hire for reward or to do any work, whether it is skilled, unskilled, or manual or clerical, who has been appointed to perform the scheduled employment. What he has to perform is a schedule, because only scheduled employment he's been covered over here, right? Means a person who has been appointed for unscheduled employment, you need not to pay the minimum wage to him, right? Right, students? Second, a person who has not been employed, means a trainee or apprentice, right, would not come under the definition of employee, right? Right, students? Employee includes what? A person who has been appointed for reward to perform any kind of work, whether skilled, unskilled, semi-skilled, clerical, right? And has been appointed to perform scheduled employment, means a person who has not been appointed to perform unscheduled who has been appointed to perform unscheduled employment, means not covered in schedule, need not to pay what beta? Minimum wage, right? An apprentice and trainee should not be provided with what beta? Because they are being provided with stipend, right? What they are getting beta? Stipend. So they would not be eligible for what beta? Minimum wage, right? Right, students? Even an out worker would come under the definition of what? Worker, right? An out worker. Have you ever heard about the out worker? See, many people are running boutique, right? Boutique where the designers are not being appointed, they are being appointed as a gig worker or a freelancer. They'll take the material from boutique, stitch the material at their place and give it back to the boutique, right? Means they are providing B2B services, right? So will they come under the definition of worker? Answer would be yes. Even they would come under the definition of what? Worker. It doesn't matter they are performing their task in-house or they are performing it at a premises of their own. Got my point, students? Even out worker would come under the definition of what? Employee. Got my point, students? Is it clear? Red shirt, please revise everything whatever I have taught in employee. Stand up and revise. Revise beta. What we are studying? What topic we are studying? What? Which topic we are studying? Minimum wages act. So be confident, no? Tell me what we have studied about employee. What do you mean by employee? Tell me what is employee? What is employee? A person who is eligible to claim for minimum wage, right? Right, students, what is employee? Any individual who has been appointed in an establishment for performing scheduled employment, right? He is eligible for what? Minimum wage, right? He is eligible for what? Minimum wage. You have to pay minimum wage to him. Employee does not include what? A person who is performing any employment which is not a scheduled employment. Any person who has been appointed as an apprentice or a trainee, right? Or third thing is what? A out worker would come under the definition of employee. Got my point, students? Is it? Be confident, no? You're here for studies, no? Sit down and please be alert while, sitting in the class. Is it clear?
Yes, the food catering comes under outdoor
What?
food catering, like order basis, selling to the community.
Yes. It would come under the definition of out worker. Even I think many food industries like momos and all, now people are making at home and delivering it to the restaurant. They will come under the definition of what beta? Out worker, right? Right, students? Member of armed force would not come under the definition of employee because they would have their own rules, right? So they would not come under the definition of what? Employee. Got my point, students? Is it clear? So giving you a quick review of minimum wage law and we are finishing up with the lecture. Okay. So when it comes to minimum wage law, it is really essential for the social development of the nation, right? For the protection of the sweetened labor, right? They are putting so much hard work, but whatever they are getting, even that is not worthy to their hard work they are putting, right? So in order to make sure that whatever they are getting, at least they can survive with that amount, right? At least they can, afford their food, shelter and clothes at least, right? It is really required for the intervention of the policy maker, that is government, to intervene in the policy making exercise of an organization, where organization is being instructed whether you are financially capable or incapable. If you are performing scheduled employment, you have to pay what beta? Minimum wage. If you're crying regularly like you don't have money, you don't have fund to pay, you are in loss, or you are you yourself is starving, how you can pay the minimum wage. No excuses will be entertained, because you are subject matter of criminal consequences if you will not pay the minimum wage, right? India is progressing and running behind a uniform national minimum wage rate according to new wage code, and by 2025 it is the plan of the ruling government that they'll shift from minimum wage to living wage, which would, other than covering, along with covering all the basic necessities as being covered in minimum wage, would cover what, beta? Education and healthcare or any other essential facility as may be prescribed by the government, right? The enactment itself is not a complete document. You have to complement it with the central rule for 4 industries. For other industries, you have to complement with it with the state rulings. And here the person who would come under the definition of employee would be absolutely eligible for. It doesn't matter what kind of task or activities he is performing. He may perform skilled, unskilled, manual or clerical work, or he may he can get the work done from his home, right? He can be a gig worker or out worker, right? But if he would perform such scheduled employment, what you have to do is you have to pay the minimum wage, right students? So done with what? Now tomorrow we'll finish it up, what, that minimum wage act, and we'll go ahead with payment of bonus act. Okay, payment of bonus act tomorrow we will start. Abhi, just quickly give me the section numbers of payment of wages act and I'll leave. No, not all, the one student. All the sections are, you can recall all the sections, right? You tell me. Yeah, which all sections we have studied? All sections of payment of wages act. The applicability. Section 2.
The definition of employee,
Employer,
and
wages, and industrial establishments. Next. Don't help him out. I am helping him out. 3. What is 3? The person who is responsible for payment of wages, right? The 4. 4. Wage period. 4 is wage period. Confidence. 5. The very important section 5. What is the summary of section 5? Blue t-shirt. Section 5. Summary of section 5. Pay in 7 days, 10 days, 7 days, 2 days, 2 days on working day. Right? Then 8. No, 5, 6. 6 is, can you pay the minimum wage in kind? Can you pay the minimum wage in kind? Can you pay the minimum wage in kind? I am not asking can the payment of wages be in kind under payment of wages act. I am asking under minimum wage act. Right? It can be. Minimum wage can be paid in kind. Yes. I didn't explain, but I have twisted the question. Next. 7. Permissible deductions. How many deductions are permissible? 10 deductions are permissible. Then rules related with fine, right? That was section 9. 8. Then directly 13. 13 is record keeping, right? Then 15 is the judicial process, entire judicial process with the penalties, right? And the offenses under minimum wage act is, payment of wages act is compoundable, whereas under minimum wage act it is not compoundable. So tomorrow you guys will come up with summary notes, right students?